It was 5:30 a.m. in Dallas, still dark outside and already humid as hell. I pulled my truck into the exact same spot I'd claimed for over 2 decades, snug against the chain-link fence near Dock 3, the paint on the curb worn thin from years of my tires brushing it. The keypad at the gate hesitated like Hellways did, so I leaned into it with my shoulder, muttered under my breath, and slipped inside the yard like I had thousands of mornings before. Inside the warehouse, the overhead lights sputtered awake, flickering for a beat too long, buzzing like tired insects trapped in glass tubes. I grabbed the clipboard off the hook, scanned the dock assignments, noted which drivers had rolled out overnight. Everything felt exactly the same. My name's Maria Delgado. I'm 57 years old. I live in Mesquite, and I've worked at Crossall Logistics in South Dallas since back when the place was just gravel, rented trailers, and ambition. Nobody ever officially asked me to open the building every morning. I just did. I checked forklifts for leaks, wiped mirrors clean of road dust, reset the dispatch board, brewed the first pot of coffee so it was ready before anyone complained. That place didn't move until I said it did, and every man on that dock knew it, whether they admitted it or not. I walked the length of the warehouse in my steel toes, keys clinking on my belt loop, breathing in diesel fumes, floor cleaner, and that permanent layer of sweat that never truly leaves a working building. I powered up the office computer, logged into my email, expecting nothing more than delivery notices or late invoices. That's when I saw it. Subject line: Alignment and Future Operations. Brief sync today. From Deanna in HR. My stomach pulled tight like someone had knotted it from the inside. Monday afternoon HR meetings only ever meant one thing: layoffs, cuts, reorganization dressed up in polite language. Still, I kept moving. Muscle memory took over. I wiped mirrors again, laid out inventory sheets, updated the DOT calendar, as if staying busy might somehow erase the message. I told myself it could be anything: new routes, new software. But I knew better. Nobody uses the word alignment unless someone's about to be straightened right out of a job. By mid-morning, the guys started drifting in: Rico, Manny, Joe from receiving. I said good morning like always, kept my voice even, didn't mention the email. I wasn't about to light a fuse I couldn't control. The hours dragged. I refilled printer paper, topped off the coffee station, walked the dock twice just to stop myself from checking my inbox again. By 4:30, pretending was exhausting. At 4:45 on the dot, I headed toward the operations trailer. The blinds were half closed, the kind of closed that pretends at privacy. Inside, I could see Deanna sitting rigid, hands folded. Beside her sat Cole Matterson, the new CEO, wearing that thin executive smile that never quite reaches the eyes. I opened the door without knocking. Cole didn't stand, just nodded like I was a delivery he didn't remember ordering. "Maria," he said, folding his hands together, "thanks for coming. First, I want to thank you for your years of service here. We appreciate everything you've contributed to Crossall." That was it. No handshake, no warmth, just a line polished smooth from repetition. Then he turned to Deanna like I'd already stopped existing. Deanna smiled tight, polite, the smile you give at a funeral when you don't know the deceased. As part of upcoming operational changes, and in anticipation of a planned acquisition, the executive team has decided to eliminate several legacy roles, including yours. Legacy roles. That's what I was reduced to. She slid a folder across the desk. Severance, offboarding, legal approval, standard procedure. I didn't open it. "We'll need your badge and your keys," she added, her tone light like she was asking for a parking pass. I reached for my belt. The key ring felt heavier than it ever had. 21 years of keys, each labeled in my own handwriting. Dock 2X lock, main panel, pump room, meter box, roof hatch. Doors most of them didn't even know existed. I set them down slow in the center of the desk. The wood creaked. Cole shifted, glanced at the keys like they were clutter. Then he said it, half under his breath but loud enough: "No one's irreplaceable." I looked at him just long enough to know he couldn't meet my eyes. Deanna cleared her throat, but I didn't stay for whatever she planned to say. I turned and walked out. The hallway felt stretched, quieter than it should have been. I passed the vending machine I'd stocked with my own cash when corporate dragged their feet, the corkboard with birthdays and safety notices, the radio still tuned to the classic rock station I liked. Nobody had ever changed it. Out on the dock, the heat smelled like rubber and oil. Joe waved from Bay 6, unaware. I didn't wave back. I walked past steel doors, past yellow lines I once measured on my knees with chalk, past the break room window where Rico fixed the microwave with a fork and duct tape. At the edge of the lot, I stopped and looked up. The old neon sign buzzed above the roof. Cross All Freight. The R flickered like it always had. We used to joke it gave the place character. We started with 3 rented trailers and 1 route to Shreveport, back when freight meant something, when loads were personal, when I rode along on weekends just to make sure things were done right. Now it was just branding, glowing and hollow. I got in my truck and sat there before starting it. No radio, no calls, just quiet. The drive home took 30 minutes I barely remember, except for one thing. No one's irreplaceable. It echoed at every red light, every mile marker. I pulled into my lot without my badge clipped to my shirt for the first time in decades. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my boots, tossed my keys in the dish, let the silence hit me heavy and wrong. I didn't turn on the lights. I went straight to the kitchen, still in my uniform. My phone buzzed. Subject: final confirmation. Offboarding compliance from Crossall HR. I read it too long. All company property. That phrase snapped something loose. I went to the hall closet, shoved aside holiday junk, and knelt in front of an old beige filing cabinet with a busted lock I'd fixed years ago with a paperclip and stubbornness. I pulled the drawer open. Second folder from the back, labeled in my own handwriting. Crossall Property Docs 2002. I sat on the floor and opened it. There it was. Lease agreement, signed in blue ink. Tenant, Maria Delgado. I remembered the day clear as anything. No warehouse yet, borrowed trucks, banks refusing them credit. I signed without hesitation. It felt like loyalty. I flipped to the last page. Renewal clause. 30 days written notice. Automatic termination if not renewed. I checked my phone. September 6th. Checked the lease again. Start date, September 1st, 2002. My chest tightened. They'd forgotten. Renewals had always gone through me. Paperwork never updated. And now it had expired. Yesterday it was still mine. I stood up, heart racing. Not fear, something sharper. They took my badge, my keys, my job, but they forgot the one thing they couldn't afford to lose. They forgot I owned the damn building. I spread the documents out, realizing how much of their operation lived under my name because I believed in it. I barely slept. The folder sat on the table all night like a lit fuse. By 8:15 the next morning, I picked up my phone and found the name I hadn't said in years. Ralph Ingram. We used to call him Ralph the Wrench, back before Crossall laid him off and he rebuilt himself into something sharper. After Crossall laid off the old mechanics, he went to night school, got certified as a legal assistant, and now ran a little office over near Elmwood.
I hit call. Hello, Ralph. It's Maria Delgado. Long pause. Well, hell, Maria. Wow, it's been 10 years? Closer to 15. Damn, I thought you retired. Or I got cut yesterday. Another pause. You're kidding. No, but I need you to look at something. You busy around noon? I can make time. What's going on? I'll bring the papers. You'll understand when you see him. I met him at a diner just off Luke 12. He was already sitting in a booth sipping coffee, still wearing that ratty cowboy's cap he always wore on Mondays. He stood up when I walked in. You look the same, he said. You lied just as bad as you used to, I shot back, sliding in across from him. I handed him the folder. He opened it right there, between the napkin dispenser and the salt shaker, flipping pages with those same thick fingers I remembered wrapped around a socket wrench. After 3 pages, he stopped. Wait, this lease is under your name? It always was, and they never moved it to the company, never even asked. He sat back, blinking. Jesus Christ, you've got them by the throat. I didn't ask for that. No, but they gave it to you. He read the clause twice, then pulled out his phone and checked the date. They didn't file anything by September 1st. Not a damn thing. Then the lease reverted. Maria, you're holding the keys whether they know it or not. I stared down at my hands. They were steady, but my stomach wasn't. I'm not trying to destroy anything, I said. You're not destroying anything, he said, voice flat. You're reminding them what they forgot. Big difference. I nodded slowly. Still didn't feel real. He flagged the waitress. You want anything? Just coffee. We didn't talk much after that. He kept reading. I just sat there watching cars drift through the intersection, thinking about how long I'd kept all that paperwork and never once thought it would matter again. That evening, I drove to his office, tiny little place sandwiched between a payday loan joint and a barber shop with busted neon. We scanned every page, front and back, every amendment, every renewal receipt. He laid it all out like evidence in a courtroom. You're solid, he said. They missed the deadline. That gives you full authority to terminate. Clean and legal. He typed as I paced. I don't want a lawsuit, Ralph. This isn't a lawsuit, it's a notice. You're just telling them what they already missed. He clicked a few more times, then turned the screen to me. Read it. 2. Cross All Logistics. Lease termination. 4510 S Lark Hill Drive. Effective immediately. It felt cold, sharp, but not wrong. Print it, I said. He hit the button. Printer started buzzing. We stood there, the two of us, in that cramped little office surrounded by dusty legal books and old air fresheners, watching the pages come out. This wasn't revenge. It was memory written in ink. I carried the printed termination notice in a manila envelope, tucked under my arm like it was just another errand. First stop, the property management office in Oak Cliff. Small building, smelled like old air freshener and carpet glue. I handed it to the receptionist, asked her to stamp the copy. She glanced at the Crossall name and said, "Oh, that's y'all's warehouse." "Used to be," I said. Her eyebrows went up, but she didn't ask anything else. Good. Second stop was the city business portal. I filed the lease change electronically, uploaded the scanned documents Ralph helped me prep, clicked through the prompts until I hit submit. It was official. By the time I got home, my inbox dinged with confirmation. Notice of lease termination accepted and processed. I stood there in my kitchen with my phone in one hand and the receipt in the other, breathing like I'd just finished a 100-yard dash. Across town, Cole Masterson was probably on camera doing what he did best, smiling into spotlights. He'd been giving interviews all week talking about growth, automation, international reach, throwing out words like streamline and next-gen infrastructure, selling the idea of Crossall like it was a tech startup, not a freight company built on sweat, gravel, and diesel. Inside that building, my building, they had no idea. They were still handing out final severance checks, finalizing job cuts. Deanna was probably scheduling more alignment meetings, while Cole shook hands with investors who'd never even seen a loading dock. My name didn't come up once. I was gone, box checked, no longer relevant. So I made myself relevant. I sat at my dining table, same spot I used to balance Crossall receipts before the company even had QuickBooks, opened a fresh folder, and started pulling from the pile I'd kept over the years. Gas station receipts from when we didn't have fuel cards yet, an invoice for the first overhead lights in Bay 3. I'd paid half up front just to get the guy to show up. Repair logs for forklifts I'd coordinated because the vendor didn't trust Cole's predecessor to sign off on work orders. Electric bills, pest control, trash pickup from the early years, all in my name. I organized it by year, clipped it tight, labeled it. Crossall expenses paid, MSA Delgado. Didn't matter if it came up later, I just needed it in one place for me. Outside, traffic buzzed down Military Parkway. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the soft hum of a delivery truck, the kind I used to schedule without software, just a clipboard and common sense. I lit a candle on the counter, not for mood, just habit. I always did that when I needed to clear my head.
Then I grabbed my old spiral notebook from the drawer, the same one I used for weekly schedules back when we still did them by hand. The first few pages were full of old scribbles, time slots, names, loading times, pages and pages of work that no one ever saw. I turned to a fresh page, wrote one line dead center. September 1st, they forgot. That was it. I closed the notebook, left it on the counter, and turned off the lights. I didn't feel rage, not yet, just something sharper, still waiting. 4 days later, the notice hit. Ralph filed it first thing that morning. Official, certified, no room for misunderstanding. I got the delivery confirmation by noon. It went to Crossall's registered address, to the property manager, and directly to Cole Masterson's inbox. This letter serves as formal notification that the lease for 4510 S Lark Hill Drive, Dallas, Texas, is hereby terminated. Tenant of record retains all legal rights to the property. Crossall Logistics has 30 days to vacate. By 3, the place was on fire. Not literally, but close. I didn't hear it firsthand, but Ralph's phone lit up like a Christmas tree. By 5, he called me, chuckling through a breath. They didn't see it coming. No surprise there. They're scrambling. Legal teams trying to figure out how you're still listed as the leaseholder. They never asked, never checked. He whistled low. You should have seen Deanna's face when she realized you weren't bluffing. I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the toaster, phone to my ear. Cole there too, front row. Silent at first, then pissed. He's got 4 lawyers running circles around a 5-page lease you wrote 23 years ago on a break room table. I cracked a smile, not gloating, just satisfied. Across town, Crossall was unraveling. Cole had booked a radio spot earlier that morning, talking about the company's 5-year expansion plan, new regional hubs, international shipping routes, all that glossy pitch deck crap. Meanwhile, his entire Dallas operation was sitting on land he didn't legally control anymore. The attorneys dug deep, trying to poke holes. That's when they found Clause 14C buried near the end of the original agreement. If at any point the tenant uses the leased property for personal or non-commercial profit, the agreement may be rendered void at the discretion of management. That was their angle.
They figured if they could prove I used the warehouse to profit personally, the termination might be invalid. Ralph came over that evening, brought takeout and a printed copy of the lease. They're filing a counterclaim, he said, sliding a manila envelope across my table. On what grounds? He tapped the clause with a red pen. They're saying you profited, that you used the warehouse lease for your own gain. I sat back. I know. I told them, you never made a dime off that place. I lost money. You've seen the invoices. Exactly. You covered utilities, signed repair contracts, paid city fees out of your own pocket. If anything, you subsidized their operations. I flipped through the pages anyway. Part of me wanted to see the words, like reading the lie would make it easier to crush. They're going to court? I asked. Maybe, but right now they're bluffing. They need time. You pulled the rug, and they're hoping if they bark loud enough, you'll hand it back. I closed the folder and looked him dead in the eyes. Let them try. He nodded. That's what I told them. That night, I didn't sleep much, but I wasn't rattled. I was clear. I walked through my apartment around midnight, barefoot, holding a mug of lukewarm tea. My place was quiet, steady. The building across the street flickered from someone's broken porch light. I thought about how many times I'd opened that warehouse, how many trucks I'd walked beside, clipboards I filled out in the cold, rain, blistering heat. Every bolt and corner of that building had my fingerprints, and now they were calling it mine for the first time, but only because it was a problem. Funny how that worked. I picked up my notebook from the counter, the one with that single line written in the middle. September 1st. They forgot. They could spin stories, call lawyers, throw money at the problem. None of it changed the date on that lease. They forgot, and now they had 30 days to remember. The elevator smelled like old leather and air conditioning. I stood next to Ralph in silence, watching the numbers blink past. 8th floor, mediation office downtown. Clean carpet, polished glass doors, receptionist with a clipboard smile. They were already waiting in the conference room. Cole sat at the end of the table, pressed shirt, perfect posture, sipping from a bottle of water like we were here to talk branding.
Deanna sat stiffly beside him, eyes on her laptop. 2 men in gray suits flanked them. Legal, obviously. I walked in steady. Didn't smile, didn't nod, just took my seat across from him while Ralph opened his briefcase. "Maria," Cole said, giving me the soft, practiced smile like we were old friends. "Glad you agreed to meet." I said nothing. Ralph pulled out the folder. "We're hoping we can come to a resolution," one of the lawyers started. "No reason this needs to be messy." Cole leaned in. "Look, we all understand what happened. It was a paperwork oversight. No one's pointing fingers, but this affects a lot of people. Dozens of jobs, freight schedules, contracts in motion. There's a fair way to fix it." He slid a single-page offer across the table. A financial settlement. Mid-6 figures, in exchange for full lease control and a signed NDA. Ralph didn't touch it. Instead, he opened our file. Calm, methodical. "These," he said, spreading out copies like a dealer with nothing to hide, "are 27 invoices paid by Miss Delgado. Utilities, property taxes, roof repair, dock resurfacing, all when the company had no credit and no legal footing to pay on its own." He placed a stack of receipts down next. "These are in her name, and these," he held up one last sheet, "are 5 checks she fronted for equipment that was never reimbursed." The lawyers said nothing. Deanna's face dropped. Cole stayed calm, but his eyes darted between the papers, tracking every detail. He looked at me. "You could have just come to us directly. We didn't need lawyers for this." "You already had lawyers when you cut me," I said. "This is just round 2. He shifted forward, more clipped now. "Do you know what you're doing here? You're about to disrupt an entire operation. People depend on that building." "You told me I was replaceable," I said, staring dead at him. "Now prove it." That shut him up. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Look, legally speaking," Ralph cut him off, "you don't have a legal leg to stand on. Lease expired. You missed the renewal window. No clause covers your failure to act. You have 30 days. That's all." Cole looked at me like I was being unreasonable, like I was supposed to care more about his problem than he ever cared about mine. "We're trying to keep the business afloat," he said, tone shifting toward righteous. "You built this place. You want to see it collapse?" "No," I said. "I want you to remember who built it." He looked down, took a breath. The lawyer next to him leaned over and whispered something. Probably something like, "She's not bluffing," or "This won't hold in court." Whatever it was, Cole's shoulders slumped. Then he looked at me again, calm but tight. "So what do you want?" I stared right back. "Nothing from you." The lawyer slid the offer back towards himself. "So you're declining settlement?" I nodded. "This isn't business, it's memory." No one spoke for a long second. Ralph stood and began collecting the documents. "I think that covers everything." Deanna started typing furiously. Cole said nothing as we walked out. In the hallway, I let out a slow breath. Not relief, just clarity. They had 30 days left, and now they knew it. 2 weeks later, I parked across the street from the warehouse at 6:42 a.m. in the morning, same time I used to roll in, only now I stayed in the car. The cross-sell sign still flickered, that busted R I told them to fix 10 years ago. Never did. A white city SUV pulled up first, then 2 court officers in black jackets stepped out with clipboards and sealed envelopes. One had a badge hanging from his neck, the other carried a laminated order in a plastic sleeve. I didn't need binoculars to know what it said. Eviction enforcement, authorized and executed. A couple workers were already there, standing by the dock, like they were waiting for coffee. One of them, a kid I didn't recognize, squinted at the officers, then pulled out his phone and started recording. The loading dock went quiet. Inside, I could barely make out movement, silhouettes scrambling behind windows. Blinds flew open, heads popped around corners. Then the front door opened fast, short sleeves rolled up, phone to his ear, talking loud. Too loud. He turned toward the court officers with that same polished smile he used in all those interviews. They didn't care. He pointed, said something, the badge guy just shook his head and handed him a copy of the order. Cole kept talking fast, animated, tried to pull one of them aside like this was a misunderstanding. I could tell from his posture he was losing the thread. Then his assistant, a tall guy in a vest, ran up behind him with a folder in hand. They started arguing, full-on yelling right there on the sidewalk. Cameras caught the whole thing. Phones were out in every direction. I watched him gesture toward the dock, then back at the notice, then at the assistant like this was someone else's screw-up. It wasn't. Across the parking lot, a moving crew van pulled in. 2 guys in navy uniforms stepped out with dollies and empty boxes.
The warehouse was getting cleared. One of the court officers walked over to the dock supervisor and handed him another notice. You could see the guide's shoulders sink. By 7:15, the building manager arrived with a key ring the size of a grapefruit, walked straight to the side entrance and locked it from the outside. It was happening. I stayed in my car, engine off, windows cracked, just enough to let in the morning breeze. From here, the building didn't look like power or money or growth. It looked like a memory. The place I scrubbed toilets when the janitor quit. The place I patched together with duct tape and elbow grease when the money wasn't there. The place I made into a system that worked, not because it was easy, but because I showed up every day to make sure it didn't fall apart. Now someone else had to hold it up or let it fall. My phone buzzed. "Ralph," I answered. "You seeing this?" he asked. "I'm looking right at it." Press picked it up. "Someone tagged you in a video, went viral already. Your name's in the headlines." I let that sit for a second, then said, "Took them long enough." Ralph laughed. "You want to talk to the press?" "Nope." "You sure?" "Let them write what they want. They'll get most of it wrong anyway." "Fair enough." I hung up and watched 2 more trucks pull in, one for furniture, one for equipment. Forklifts got unplugged, office chairs started rolling out the back door. Across the street, someone was crying. Another guy slammed a clipboard on the hood of a car. Reality was hitting fast. Still, I felt no triumph, no fire, no grin, just a stillness. This wasn't about revenge, it was about respect, and they finally ran out of mine. 2 days later, the envelope came. Stamped, sealed, formal. I sliced it open with the side of my thumbnail and pulled out the court letter. Lease terminated. Property returned to tenant of record, Maria Delgado. That was it. Final. Done. I folded it neatly and slid it into the back of my notebook, the one that still had just 1 line written inside. Not even an hour later, Eddie knocked on my door. He used to be our lead dock loader before he got moved to night shifts, then laid off completely. I opened the door, and there he was, grin wide, holding a bottle of cheap red wine like we'd just hit the lottery. "You did it," he said, stepping in without waiting for an invite. "I did something," I said, shutting the door behind him. He popped the cork and poured us both a glass, like we were celebrating a retirement instead of a reckoning. "You see the news?" he asked. "Not yet. Cole's out, stepped down yesterday. Some investor group bought out the board. They're moving Crossall to Arizona." "Arizona?" He nodded. "Guess the heat makes more sense for cold storage, or maybe they're just running from the wreckage." I took a sip. It was terrible wine, but it did the job. "Some folks are talking about starting their own operation," he added. "Smaller, tighter, no suits this time." I didn't say much, just listened. Let the sound of his voice fill the room while I watched the light from the windows spill across the floor. That night, after Eddie left and the wine was half gone, my phone rang. Jason, my son. I hadn't heard from him in months. He was always distant, respectful, but tired of hearing about my job. Thought I was too loyal, that I stayed too long in one place. I let it ring twice, then picked up. "Hi," he said. "I saw your name on the news." I waited. "I didn't get it before," he said. "Why you stayed, why you fought like that. I get it now." I closed my eyes for a second. Let that sit. "Understanding now is enough," I said. He was quiet after that, and then we said goodbye. I set the phone down on the counter and looked out the window. The city didn't look different, it never does, but something in me had shifted. Not in a way people cheer for, just in a way that finally settled. I turned off the light, walked down the hall, and stopped at the small framed nail on the wall above my calendar. There it was, the original warehouse key, dull brass, labeled in Sharpie, still hanging where I left it the day they took my badge. Some people think buildings run on systems or software or money, but I know better. Some systems only run because someone cared enough to hold them up.